stand.
How wonderful to look out on this sea of faces and to welcome Justice Ginsburg to the National Constitution Center. I am Jeffrey Rosen. I am the new president and CEO of this wonderful institution. I have been on the job for 3 months, and I cannot imagine a conversation that I would rather be sharing with you than the one that we're about to have tonight. The National Constitution Center, as many of you know, is a very special place. We are chartered by Congress to disseminate information about the US Constitution on a nonpartisan basis. And to do that, we have 3 missions. We are the Museum of We the People, we're a Center for Civic Education, and we're America's Town Hall, the one place in the country that brings together the best arguments on all sides of constitutional debates and allows citizens to make up their own minds. As part of that, we sponsor constitutional conversations, and as I say tonight, it is impossible to imagine a better one to be having than the one that we're going to have right now. I should say, to ensure that we all enjoy it fully, please turn off your cell phones, and remember, no flash photography. Tonight, I have the tremendous honor of welcoming a constitutional giant, a woman who's been called the Thurgood Marshall of the women's movement, the second woman to sit on the US Supreme Court, and a dear friend. Please welcome once more Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Thank you.
Justice Ginsburg, you've honored the Constitution Center by coming here before, but I'm so thrilled that you're here during my first months on the job. We met many years ago, I think it was 1991, when you were on the US Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit, and I was a lowly law clerk, and we bonded over opera. I think we talked about that. And since then you did me and Christine, my wife, the great honor of marrying us 10 years ago, and Christine is here in the front row. And this is our 10th anniversary, and we remember that day with great pleasure. But I want to begin by noting that just last weekend you performed another marriage, which was a bit more historic. And that took place in Washington. Tell us about that. That was the first same-sex marriage performed by a US Supreme Court justice.
Yes, it was the marriage of Michael Kaiser, who is the head of the Kennedy Center, to his longtime partner, whose name happens to be John Roberts, the same name as our Chief Justice. It was a simply beautiful wedding. The high point for me of the ceremony was Harold Blackwell, who sang Du Bis de Rue. It was exquisite. There was lots of family on both sides, lots of Roberts, lots of Kaisers. It was like a wedding of 2 people who were deeply in love with each other and were finally able to make their shared lives a lawful relationship.
And how did you feel as a justice performing the ceremony? What did it say about America?
It's one more example of what I see as the genius of our Constitution. If I ask you the question, who counted among we the people when our Constitution was new? Well, not very many people. Certainly I wouldn't. Certainly not people who were held in human bondage, and not even most men, because you had to be a property owner as well. So think of what our nation and our Constitution has become over now well more than 2 centuries. The idea of we the people has become more and more embracive So people who were once left out, people who were once slaves, women, Native Americans, it did not count in the beginning. So it's come about as a result of Constitution amendments in the case of the Civil War, 3 Civil War amendments, and judicial interpretation, and an idea that was there from the beginning, equality, and yet you can read every page of your pocket Constitution, you will not find in the original Constitution, you will not find the word equal or equality, even though that was the main theme of the Declaration of Independence. So the word equal becomes part of the Constitution in the 14th Amendment. So I see the genius of our Constitution and as our society is how much more embracive we have become than we were at the beginning.
I wanted to note that we talked about opera before this conversation started, and you have recently been the subject of an opera. Over the summer, a music student has proposed a new opera, Scalia Ginsburg, and it sounds like one of the great buddy movies of all time, but it essentially tells the story of how these two people with very different personalities, one bombastic and the other quite demure, are locked in a room, and the only way to get out is to agree on a common approach to the Constitution? What is this opera? And what's it like to listen to?
Well, it's roughly based on the magic flute. Justice Scalia has to go through certain trials, and he's not able to do it on his own, so I come along and make it possible for him to succeed. The opera is still in progress because the composer just graduated from the University of Maryland Law School, and he needed to take off part of the summer to study for the bar. But this idea came to him when he was studying constitutional law and reading these opinions and thinking, that would make it, I could take these words and make this into an opera plot. Perhaps if I recited the first words of Justice Scalia's opening aria, you'll get the idea.
That would be great. Please do that.
Well, it's his rage aria. And it goes this way. The justices are blind. How can they spout this? The Constitution says absolutely nothing about this.
The man clearly has talent. I got from the NPR excerpts from the libretto a similarly inspired line set to the music of the Star-Spangled Banner. "Oh, Ruth, can you read? You're aware of the text, yet so proudly you failed to derive its true meaning." I think it's going to be a huge hit, and I want you to do the Philadelphia premiere here at the National Constitution Center. Well, you and Justice Scalia have been longtime friends, and you go to the opera together, and you have spent New Year's together. And I remember years ago when I was talking to law clerks before you were nominated to the bench, they had just heard Justice Scalia ask the question, if you were locked on a desert island, who would you like it to be with? And he said it would be Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So you're dear friends.
Well, there wasn't much competition.
Well, you know what? I think you're right, because the alternative was Lawrence Tribe. So, well, yeah.